Hello, my name is Wesley Fryer, and this is a special message that I'm recording today on July the 6th, 2008 for the members of the Edmond Public Schools School Board. And I have to preface my comments by saying that what I'm about to share in terms of my opinions do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the company for which I work, but they definitely reflect my opinions and beliefs and contentions as a parent of now 2 children that are going to school here in the Edmond schools in Oklahoma, as well as a very concerned advocate for learning and for high quality education, particularly high quality education in our public schools. I want to make this brief because I know your time is precious and everyone's time is a finite resource, but I wanted to express to you my frustration at the fact that here in the Edmond schools, which is a great school system, we are simply not helping prepare students with the skills that they need for the 21st century in our classrooms. And I share that perspective as someone who has been the state advocate and education advocate for the entire state of Oklahoma for the past 2 years, and has had a chance to travel to many different schools across our state, across our nation, and even outside our country. And we as Edmond schools were recognized 2 years ago by the Oklahoma Technology Administrators Association, OTA, as the Technology District of the Year. And I fear that the award of that recognition may have created a false perception that Edmond schools are doing it right when it comes to technology. And I share this not because I want to bring people down, but because I want to help encourage us to look beyond our immediate respect to technology and learning. Utilization of technologies in the classroom today, as I shared in another video that I'll include on this DVD I'm sending you, should mean so much more than just using a productivity software package like Microsoft Office to do word process and use Excel and to do presentations with PowerPoint. We need to be helping students today collaborate on a regular basis on what is being called the read-write web, or Web 2.0. There's a great deal of fear surrounding that whole idea, because in the past, students have not had the opportunity to publish for a global audience. But the day in which we live has changed in fundamental ways. And there are a lot of different research reports that I could try and bring to your attention, but I'm just going to mention 2. And one of them is the Connecting and Collaborating report that was released in the summer of 2007 by the National School Board Association. And like many reports, it said many different things, but one of the most important statistics in that particular study said that over a quarter of students in that particular survey on a weekly basis are updating websites and updating content on their own social networking pages and their own websites that they maintain. When you ask that question to teachers today, here in the Edmond schools and in other parts of Oklahoma, we get quite a different answer. Students are certainly engaged to a much greater degree in the use of technology on their own time. But one of the big problems we see is that young people continue to make bad choices with technology. And we tend to hear that amplified the most in the press. We tend to hear about the fight videos that students posted onto YouTube, or we tend to hear about the cyberbullying and the ways that students are using their technology tools in just, hurtful ways. It is our responsibility as adults and as educators to help students not only become ethical and responsible citizens of our local community, of our state, and of our nation, but today also become effective, ethical, and responsible citizens of the world. We talk about digital citizenship, and there are different skills that we need to talk about with students. For instance, when a student has a cell phone, how are they going to choose to use that? When they can take a picture with their phone and have that on the internet immediately, or as I'm going to do, use a video recorder and immediately post that video up to YouTube. What kind of responsibility goes with that kind of power? I'd like to tell a quick story about video conferencing because I really have striven not only to work with schools around our state and outside of our state of Oklahoma, but also right here in Edmond. And in the 2006-2007 school year, I worked with one of our campuses, Chisholm Elementary School, to facilitate a series of 4 different video conferences with NASA. And NASA has a wonderful network called the Digital Learning Network. And it's possible to set up video conferences, as in this case, for 3rd grade students to visit with NASA education professionals, in some cases with astronauts and scientists, and be able to interface directly with folks who are working on our space program and very aware of the work that's being done with the space program. Those video conferences took place in May of 2007, and it took several weeks of work to facilitate that and put that together. We are not, in my understanding, in the Edmond schools, video conferencing on a regular basis, even with classrooms across the district, much less across Oklahoma, much less across the nation. And we need to be doing that. As I have worked for a Fortune 9 telecommunications company here in Oklahoma for the past year, I have seen the critical importance of individuals being able to meet with others that are in different places, being able to make those kinds of connections, being responsible to show up and to do their part and to work on project teams as they accomplish tasks. We need right now every classroom in our school, not just the high school, but every single classroom, to have a webcam and to have a microphone. And for our teachers to be supported in the ways that they communicate with each other and the ways they connect students with each other. We also need to embrace the appropriate and the ethical use of the read-write web, or Web 2.0. As I have been here in Edmond now for 2 years, it has been abundantly evident to me that the word blog and the idea of blogging is really considered to be evil here in our school district. In fact, I've seriously commented to others that making a suggestion to teachers or principals in our Edmond schools that we need to be blogging and writing is almost like saying we're going to sacrifice a goat today after the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, you talk about big eyes. The fear that I have seen in the eyes of many of the teachers, as well as even some administrators here in the Edmond Public Schools, when I suggest that we need to use these kind of tools, I believe, and I could be wrong, and I hope you'll correct me if I am wrong, comes from leadership. It comes from the school board. And I am creating this video and sending you this letter as a citizen of our community, as a taxpayer, and as a parent, because I feel strongly that we need to move beyond this atmosphere of fear when it comes to technology use, and we need to find ways, and there are ways, there are many ways, to use these technologies in safe and controlled ways so that our students and teachers can acquire these skills, which they're simply not acquiring and working on. And I want to close with a sad story that happened. But I'm sharing this because I want this story to not end here. I want there to be an additional chapter. This past fall, in September of 2007, I was invited to go present in Shanghai, China, at a conference that was called the Learning 2.0 Conference. And there were teachers and educators from around the world that came together, and of course most of the participants were from East Asia, but they were from all over East Asia. And I had a chance to meet a wonderful elementary teacher from Hong Kong. And when I returned to Edmond, I shared the contact information of this teacher with my son's teacher, and suggested that there be an interaction across international communication that would take place and happen. And so I worked with the Edmond schools to see if that would be possible. And eventually there were emails that were exchanged back and forth. There were videos that were created by Hong Kong students and sent back. There were some VoiceThread digital stories that were created. That's a program that we can use to have a still picture and some recorded audio to share it back and forth. Basically, we had some interaction, and that was exciting. We came to the end of the school year, and at the end of the school year, 2 things happened. My daughter, who also goes to Chisholm Elementary and was in the 2nd grade, had an opportunity to be in Washington, D.C. with her grandparents. and had a chance to video conference back to us. This is an XO laptop that I have, and in fact I'm using my MacBook laptop over there with a camera, but just like my MacBook, this camera has a webcam built in it, and it's possible to record video. Anyway, my daughter, who is 8, wanted to video conference back to her class and share some of the things that she was doing in Washington, D.C. She was told, or actually the teacher was told, that that couldn't happen because all of the interactions that took place on the network had to go over the existing network. I couldn't bring my cell phone data card, which I pay for myself, and make that kind of a connection. And that was sad because that opportunity for learning was missed. The other thing that happened was I offered to set up a video conference using a program called Skype, which is a free voice over the internet program that lets us talk with audio and video between the Hong Kong students and our Edmond students. And again, I was told no, it was not possible because there wasn't time, we couldn't support that. We do these kinds of video conferences all the time in my job, okay, as I work for the 9th largest company in the entire United States. And we have to collaborate because that is the way the world works today. We do not simply work in isolation in most jobs. We work together, and we use tools like cell phones and like computers to not only get information, we use them in that way, but also to share information and to publish information. And it was devastating to me personally to not have an opportunity to facilitate that. The previous year I had worked for weeks, and literally it was hours and hours over a 3-week period of time to get those NASA video conferences set up in the previous year. They happened, but it was extremely difficult to do. This year, this past May of 2008, I wanted to help facilitate a similar learning interaction in our schools, and I was told no. And I understand the Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA. I understand FEMA, which is, or FERPA. FEMA is something else, which requires that we protect students' confidentiality. Nowhere here am I advocating that we do things which are unsafe and which do not protect children. But what I would exhort you as a school board to do is to work with parents, and I'm sure there are more than just me, who want to see our children using these tools in their classrooms on a daily basis. My kids need a laptop, maybe not an XO laptop, maybe it's a different kind. They need it in their hands in the next year, in 2 years. We only have about 4 or 5 school districts in all of Oklahoma today that are providing laptop computers, not XOs, but other kinds of laptops for their students. We need to be doing this in Edmond. We need the leadership, and this is my appeal to you as the elected representatives of our school district. We are not, as a school district, preparing students for the present day, much less the 21st century, decades to come, which we can barely begin to imagine what is life going to look like. I think we can say a couple things, and number one, we can say that technology is going to continue to be essential. It's going to be essential that students know how to effectively access information from diverse sources, that they be media savvy and media literate and able to discern what to believe and what not to believe. Doesn't the presidential election that we have right now and the emails that fly around about different candidates really drive that home? We're also, I think, going to see that leadership is critical. And we have an opportunity in our community to truly lead not only the state of Oklahoma, but to lead our nation. We have a group called the Oklahoma Creativity Project, and the leaders of that initiative recognize that in a flat world, as Tom Friedman observes, when we have access to technology and when we're connected to each other, creativity becomes an extremely important trait and characteristic of the individuals that are graduating from our institutions. I know that we have very low dropout rates in the Edmond schools. I know that our average test scores are very high. I also know that we live in an affluent community, and the correlation between affluence and test scores is something that's very well documented in the literature. Just because we have good test scores does not mean that we as a school district are rising to the challenges and rising to the demands that are out there today for the workforce, and also that we as parents expect. And I'll just close with a final point about another research report that just came out. Scholastic, which I'm sure you're familiar with because they publish many of our textbooks, released a family literacy and technology report this summer in 2008. And one of the fears that we have, there's a lot of fears that we have, but one of the big ones is that as students use technology, they're going to read less. And in my own home, I certainly see this not be true, as my own children voraciously read books, just as they also use technology to access information, but also to publish and to write. And that was borne out in this research study as well. In fact, fully 2/3 of the students in this particular study indicated that they utilized the internet and they utilized technology in ways that extended their learning, and that they still loved reading library books, and they loved that traditional literacy experience as well as the technological one. So we have a challenge before us. We have a formidable challenge and responsibility to educate the next generation, not only of leaders in our community and our country, but the next generation of human beings that are here on this planet. That is, I believe, a holy task. It is incredibly important. And the leadership which we have in our school district is vitally important. So I encourage you to get involved with the Partnership for 21st Century Skills, to contact me directly, and I'll include my cell phone number and home address and number, because I would love to visit with each one of you about these topics. I want to thank you for the time that you've given, and for those of you that may not be on the Edmond School Board but may be seeing this video, I would encourage you to find creative ways to engage the policymakers and the decision makers in your community, for it is absolutely true that good leadership matters. We need strong leadership right here in Edmond, Oklahoma, and right here in the state of Oklahoma, to help prepare students for the current day and for their future. And we can do that together. It is a scary world in many ways, but we can't be driven by fear. We must take the passion and the hope that we have within our hearts for learning and for helping students learn, and together find ways to utilize these technologies to open up doors of opportunity that simply were not there in the 20th century. Thank you very much for your time. My frustration